Hello, WBE fans! My name is Jacob as always, and welcome to the weekly recaps for the Shield Division for season number 3 of the WBE. Who am I being joined by today?
Hello, it's Dr. Slaking, the Slaking Doctor. Happy to actually be with you this time and not recording after you. It's good to be together.
Well, I'm going to knock on wood really quick because no technical difficulties. Let's hope everything's smooth sailing from here.
Yes, let's hope so.
Alright, otherwise I'll just have to fly out to England every single Tuesday night, and we'll just do it live in person, because then it's impossible to screw up. Okay, that'd be very expensive very quickly.
Let's see if we can get the sponsors to fund that. Let's see if we can get travel expenses covered for flights to England every week.
I mean, we're technically analysts. They do it for sports analysts on TV, so why not? Alright, anyway, jokes aside, let's get started with the game of the week for week number 2 of the WBE. We have the Maryland Terrapins, coached by Under the Radar, facing his good buddy, Mewtwo Fan Knight, head coach of the New York Noibats. And boy, was this game a doozy. It was very good, and I don't know, Nate might just have the game of the week every week. Who knows? But
Yeah.
Do you want to start off by talking, or?
No, you lead straight into it. You're in the flow.
All right, well, both, first and foremost, I just want to say both players bought really good sets, and I really liked a lot of, I brought this, the highlight of this game, the highlight set from Kelly, I really thought was the special Zygarde. Could put in work in theory, and it did put in work. It had Poisonium Z with Sludge Wave, it had Hidden Power Flying, it had Earth Power, it had a lot of stuff that hit everything on Nate's team super hard, and something that I really liked on Nate's end, I guess, was the combination of Toxic Spike set up by Cloyster along with Banded Lucario. I think both of those were really good sets this week. But it was a really back and forth game. Getting Toxic Spikes up with against Kelly's team, since he had no removal and no grounded poison type, was superb, just leading that, because for the most part, Cloyster can really set that up pretty effectively versus a lot of stuff, especially with Kelly leading Mega Aggron to get his rocks up. So that was really good. But I think both made Nate really made a solid play, like middle of the game, I believe. It was Wigglytuff, a Poison Wigglytuff versus a Assault Vest Sylveon, which was another cool set. And Nate recognizes that Kelly is trying to Wish Pass into his Mega Aggron, and he clicks Shadow Ball, knocking it out, which if Nate would have let him get that Wish Pass into Mega Aggron, oh, that would not have been good, because that would have been just really, really rough for Nate to try to pull back the game. So.
Yeah, I completely agree. On that turn, when I was watching that battle, and Nate switched into the Sylveon, I was screaming at my laptop. I was like, no, he's going to go into the Aggron. He's going to pass into the Aggron. And I was thinking that he had just let him in for free and hadn't pressured the Wish at all. So when he revealed the Shadow Ball and was able to take it out that way, I was so relieved. I was so happy to see that play.
Did you watch from Kelly's side, or did you watch from Nate's side? Because I actually got a chance to watch a lot of these games from both perspectives this week. So that's what I really was happy about.
I actually saw this one from Nate's side. I don't think I saw Kelly's side. I might have done. I've watched so many games in the past few days, it's possible I did. But I know that I definitely saw from Nate's side, because to begin with, it didn't look like he had considered the possibility of the Aggron coming in. It looked like he'd just gone into Sylveon anyway. And then it kind of dawned on him and he made the Shadow Ball play, which was so nice to see.
Yeah, because he was about to click Hyper Voice. He's like, no, wait, no.
Yep.
Shadow Ball's the right play.
Yep.
Even though Wigglytuff is immune to it,
Yep.
it's the right play, because even if he stays in, what is a Wigglytuff going to do to Assault Vest Sylveon? Nothing. So, very good play. Nate seemed like he was just in control for most of the game, but then Kelly just brought it back. Like, Kelly played his cards right, got the Zygarde in when the time was right, broke down his team, and then it came down to Banded Lucario versus a Scarfed Mesprit. It was Scarfed Mesprit, Wigglytuff versus Banded Lucario, and then Scarfed Hydreigon, I believe. And he had brought Lucario in, I think, after like something died, and then he couldn't lock himself. I think he went for Banded Meteor Mash, and it didn't quite take out the Mesprit, and he would have died to another Banded Meteor Mash, and then he would have died to another Dazzling Gleam. So we had to sack off Hydreigon so Mesprit could come, or so Lucario could come in and chip it or get it off with a Banded Extreme Speed, which it did. But then the only unfortunate thing about that was it couldn't kill the Wigglytuff that was at like 70% health or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And I think with the exact spreads, if I'm remembering this right, it was actually a roll for the Dazzling Gleam to finish off the Lucario. So I think if he had perfect information in a perfect world, some people were commenting on his video and saying you should have just stayed in and gone for the damage roll, as you could never win with the extreme speed endgame. But there's no way to know that as a player. You can't have all of that information. You can't know your opponent's exact spread. And if it looks like you're going to get 2-hit KO'd, you kind of have to work with that information, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. You could have gotten like, it could have gotten a min roll, but at the way he still played his cards right because he could have. Either way, it was probably about the same percent, that 6.3% chance.
Yeah.
That's what a crit is, I believe, of him winning the game at that point, which he still played his cards right. And what I find really funny is I don't know if Kelly knew it was banded Lucario, because I don't know if he was joking or not at the end of his video, but he had stated, oh, he didn't want to kill his mascot. Which he couldn't because he's locked in the banded extreme speed. So maybe Kelly didn't realize it was banded, or maybe Kelly was just poking making a joke or something. Either way, it was funny, but
yeah,
it was just a solid game, and we feel this was the game of the week for the Shield division, at least, just because it was like, I guess, another example of two friends who know each other pretty well going at it, and it was just a fun game overall. I mean, all these games that I watched on my end were really, really close, so it was a really tough to pick a game of the week. I just thought this was the game of the week, at least overall.
I completely agree. I thought this week was really tough to pick a game of the week. I think something that I really enjoyed about this one as well was not knowing too much about Nate and knowing him more as someone who says that he doesn't like to or doesn't think of himself as a super competitive player, but more someone who likes to bring heat and have fun. I was really impressed with things like his hazard game, as you say, getting up T-spikes, getting up a spike, things like that, understanding kind of the more sort of chess match side of Pokemon, and really using that and abusing kind of Kelly's weakness to those hazards. Definitely showed to me a very competitive and skilled battler, which was really, really entertaining to watch.
Exactly. I think Nate's just getting better and better as he's going throughout his draft league career. And eventually, it's unfortunate that he's 0-2. He's just had two of like the best battlers for sure, at least in the Shield division to start out. So I think Nate will probably have a better chance of bouncing back hopefully in week 3. I'm not quite sure who he plays yet, but hopefully he'll have a better chance of bouncing back and getting that first victory of the season. But do you want to talk about one of the games you covered this week?
Yeah, so nice little segue into Nate's week 1 opponent, as I'm going to talk about Leo versus Kyle this week. Which was a really, really fun game to watch because I've seen these two battle before and go for sort of meme games. This is the Durham Drudigans versus the Miami Dolphins, just for those of you that don't know.
Wait, no. I thought it was the Goat Drudigans.
You're right. We gotta listen to the comments. It's the Goat Drudigans versus the Miami.
No,
Dolphins.
I literally put that in when I did the recaps last week. I literally put Goat Drudigans.
Oh, did you? I didn't see that. I just saw Leo's comment.
I did. You didn't notice it?
No, I just saw Leo's comment, and I was like, oh, okay. I didn't even see it. There we go. I'm letting the side down. But the
That's why he said it, because I put it in there.
I thought he was just enjoying his week 1 win, which was, I mean, he was perfectly entitled to do. Well-deserved win as well.
No, I agree.
But yeah, so going into this game, I've seen these two battle before, and they've always kind of had a lot of fun with it, brought a lot of meme sets and stuff, but this time they agreed to have a more serious and competitive game, from what Leo said. And it definitely was. It was a really entertaining match, as Kyle brought his son, left his Rain on the bench this week. I think he has Rain as well. And
yeah, he does.
Yeah, and it was quite a close game with some interesting things like Flame Charge Volcanion, Victory Bell as a Sun Abuser, with the Fire Z. And there was a little bit of a hacks too, as Kyle picked up a 10% paralysis on a Thunderbolt onto the Muck into a double full paralysis on the Muck, so the Victory Bell could break through it. But in general, it was just...
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was a pretty hacksy match in that mid-game, but in general, it was just a really nice game played by both sides. Leo seemed on the back foot for a lot of it, actually. He seemed to be struggling. Kyle really caught him off guard with things like physical Nidoqueen, and then he brought an amazing Cresselia set, and this, to me, was the set of the game. He brought in his Cresselia, as
I remember seeing
that. As the Uniclus came in, and he skill swapped it to give it Levitate and to take its Magic Guard, meaning he could Moonlight back up to full even though he was toxic and didn't then have any toxic racking up, while the Reuniclus had started to take toxic damage. And I thought that was such a clever way to shut down a Calm Mind Reuniclus with a Cresselia that otherwise would kind of be set at bait. So I really, really enjoyed that tech. That was really fun. But in general, I think Leo was just able to clutch it out at the end, and his kind of build overall was a little bit stronger, a little bit superior. And I think that Kyle, maybe some of his heat didn't quite work out, and that's the nature of running every set as a heat set. For example, I think Special Volcanion would have been much more effective than Physical Volcanion, because he wouldn't have had to try and get to like +3 speed and be able to be revenged by the Lopunny's priority. He could have gone off a big hit on the Cradilly and other switch-ins, and I think he would have been in a better position. So Leo did eventually emerge the 3-0 victor in this game, but in general, like I was impressed by how Kyle played. I definitely against one of the hardest opponents in the league in Leo.
Yeah, fun fact, they actually played in the APA Season 3 Wi-Fi Championship game, if you didn't know that. So I think
I didn't know
Leo,
that.
Yeah, Leo definitely did win that. So I just was stating random facts that I know about
No, I didn't
so.
I didn't know that either, though. But yeah, Leo impressed me again. I mean, 2 weeks on the row. This man's looked like he's on the back foot. He's looked like he might be in a losing position. But he's just managed to clutch it out with some good plays. And more importantly, I think really, really good prep on his end.
I agree 100%. But anyway, let's transition to the next game that I covered. Is the Atlanta Umbreons, coached by Fint Attacks, versus the Florida Gators, coached by Gator. Fun fact. Anyway, basically on the surface of this game, Christian brought a really solid team with Wincons, Revenge Killers, and like Adamant Scarf Flygon. He brought Calm Mind, Mega Gardevoir, Dragonance, Dragonium, Komao. And they just brought like a just solid team with just a balanced offensive team, and I really like that. However, something that happened, something that's huge and crucial about this entire battle that really changed how the battle was played by Christian was Team Preview. I'm not sure if you saw this game, but Archeops revealed to have no item in Team Preview, and that should have like maybe Christian didn't see this or he didn't think about it, but that should have triggered that Archeops has Acrobatics.
Yeah, 100%. I did actually see this. Yeah.
So. Yeah, and you did see it, you said?
Yeah, I did, and I noticed that too. Well, I'll let you talk about why that becomes important, but yeah, I was thinking at Team Preview as well, he's got to try and spot the no item there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he leads Fortress, which is a perfectly fine lead, versus Archeops, and I think he tried to go for, was it Rocks, or did he go for... Yeah, I think it was Rocks turn 1, and he had missed the Heat Wave.
Yeah.
So he thought it was a great idea to switch into his Wincon, being Como. And unfortunately, Archeops is strong as heck, and after the Heat Wave damage, literally OHKO'd Como. So that put Christian on the back foot from turn 2, or was it? No, it would have been turn 3, because, yeah. But still, the point is that Christian was playing on the back foot most of the match, especially without one of his Wincons. However, like Christian still played the best he could and narrowly lost 1-0. Just like the previous week for Sacred vs. Kelly, you could tell that Christian knew Gator was a phenomenal battler, and you could tell that his nerves got the best of him a little bit. I'm not sure if you watched it from Gator or Christian's perspective, but you could just tell that he was really nervous, and he stated that in his commentary. And Gator just played Gator-esque game, and Gator just did what he needed to do to win the game. 1-0 though, but so kind of happy about that.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you, and I think there are some things that you kind of learn the more you play, the more experience you get, such as noticing things at Team Preview like no item, and then kind of realizing, if you see an Archeops lead and it doesn't have an item, then it's not going to be a Focus Sash Endeavor lead or anything like that. So you can kind of see that it's likely to be some sort of counter lead with things like Heatwave Acrobatics and things like that to pressure your hazard setters. I think there were certain things that he could have done with more experience, but the only way to get that is to play these games and learn from them, so I'm sure he probably has.
Yeah, he thought the Archeops was for sure Focus Sash right from the get-go.
Yes.
And if he would have just looked at Team Preview, he would have known no Focus Sash, and he could have OHKO'd it with Gyro Ball.
Yeah,
and then gotten his rocks up the next turn.
For sure. And definitely the Heat Wave miss made it look even worse, because he could have really capitalized on that even more. But it was nice by Gator prep to bring the Heat Wave in the first place. That was a pretty cool thing that I'm not sure I would necessarily thought of, so I was impressed with that. And it was definitely nice to see Gator bounce back, because I know in his commentary on his side of the game, he said he'd been feeling really sick and he wasn't very well and stuff, so shout out to him for still being able to pull through with a nice win with some good prep, and that's always nice to see.
Exactly. And I just realized I caught myself saying I was really happy about that, and I'm unbiased during this entire weekly recap, but the reason I was happy is because this is the last game I saw of the week and the last outcome I knew, and Gator winning meant I went 14-0 in my predictions this week, so I just kind of wanted to point that out because I thought that was funny. But anyway, let's move on to one of the other games.
Yes, so next up for me, I had a game that I really thought was fascinating between Galactic Elliot and Jodor, the Chicago Cub Chews against the Seattle Sea Kings. And this one was actually, I believe, the only game, certainly in our division, I think the only game that went to timer this week, with a 2-2 finish, but the win actually going to the Galactic Elliot. And this game was really, really interesting with some big plays, some big misplays, all sorts going on. I'm not sure if you caught this one, but
I did see some parts of the game, not fully though. Since you had said that, I watched a little bit, but since you said you were going to cover it mostly, I was just like, I'll let him cover it, and then I'll point out stuff that I agree or disagree with.
Yeah, for sure. So there was a really interesting turn, I think, midway through the game, which put Elliot kind of on the back foot, where the Infernape comes in to revenge kill the Sandslash, and it clicks Flamethrower to kill the Sandslash. And Elliot still has his Mantine in the back at a pretty good range of health, and this Infernape is revealed to be at least mixed, but more than likely leaning towards the special side. And I really thought we'd see Mantine come out there. It would be able to take a T-punch from full, from my understanding of his spread and stuff. It would have been fine, and could have just scolded the Infernape, and potentially even just scolded to get a burn on anything else, or he could have doubled predicting the Sigilif and tried to get offensive momentum with something like his Hooper or Scolipede coming in on the double. So I felt like he had some plays that he could really make there, but instead he went out into the Hooper Unbound and tried to bluff the Scarf, and then went for the Hyperspace Fury, when he did survive the Ape staying in and clicking the Poison, and actually didn't manage to pick up the KO on the Ape, because not only did he try to bluff Scarf, but he didn't just go for the Zen Headbutt to KO the Ape. So, sorry about that, guys. We had some technical problems, so we had to make a quick cut there. But to continue from where I left off, so Elliot tried to bluff the Scarf and ended up not being able to kill the Ape because he went for the Hyperspace Fury, as the Ape went for the Poisonium Z and didn't pick up the KO on the Hooper either. But it was then able to KO the Hooper the next turn. And that really set Elliot back, losing one of his primary breakers in the game, and I thought it was a slightly needlessly aggressive play. I'm not sure the risk versus reward was worth it there when he had a safe place to make. I understood the want to bluff, but I don't know, I didn't feel it was necessary. Then, a little bit later on, he goes into Scully to revenge kill the Infernape, and as he goes for a Protect to get the free speed boost on the Infernape, Joe actually clicks Rocks, knowing that the only way that the Scolipede isn't going to KO him with an Earthquake here is if it goes for a Protect, so it's a pretty free Rocks play for him, which was really, really nice on Joe's side as well. So, at this point in the battle, Elliot was really kind of struggling and looked like he was going to be in the back. He was being thrown off by the Sigilif a lot that he didn't really know how to play around. But in the end, it just came down to some bulky Mons squaring off for the last few turns, as Sigilif ended up in 1v1 versus the Mantine, and neither were actually able to KO each other. And they just kind of stayed each other down for about half an hour, I think, before eventually...
Half an hour?
Yeah, it was a long time. It was like 20 minutes plus, I think. Before eventually Jodor had to concede defeat because he had ran out of PP, I think, and so he just preserved the differential and took the 2-2 timer loss. So really, really interesting match, just in terms of being able to see when those hyper-aggressive plays don't work out, but you bring good enough walls to kind of bail you out in the defensive endgame. You don't often see defensive endgames in Draft League, so I thought it was really, really cool to see that.
Exactly, and it's just like kind of a weird game. I don't know.
It was really weird.
It was definitely a weird game. It was just unorthodox, and I didn't really expect it. But
I completely agree.
Because especially with Elliot's team, because his team just seems like more offensive.
Yes.
Just looking at it.
Yeah, definitely. He has a lot of offensive threats, good breakers, things like the Porygon Z, which was able to get off a couple of agilities, but was still outsped by Scarf, Haxorus, and the Tailwind. That was really interesting. I didn't actually know the Tailwind plus Scarf interaction, so I learned something new along with Elliot there. That was really interesting. But in general, 100%, the two teams looked offensive. It didn't look like it was going to go to that type of an endgame, and you don't often see it in Wi-Fi. On Showdown, you see it a bit more because there's no timer. But yeah, it was quite fascinating to watch, I found.
Yeah, sometimes you can get a defense endgame in Showdown, but nonetheless, it was an enjoyable game still.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, let's transition into another game I covered, which was the Chicago Bouffalons, coached by Sacred, versus the Bristol City Blazikins, coached by Gameboy Luke. Overall, looking at the team matchups, it was a pretty even matchup team-wise and experience-wise in draft format. I think Luke has a little bit more edge playing in draft format, but I think Sacred still looked pretty solid because I know he was in UCL, and I think maybe that's it, but I know Luke was just in UCL in a couple seasons of WBE, so his experience isn't too much more, but I really like the Specs Electros lead from Sacred, because that just immediately put pressure onto Gameboy Luke's team. Because if you look at the team he brought, Necrozma, Mega Scizor, Drampa, Tentacruel, Primarina, and Lando I. There really isn't anything that wants to switch into a Specs Thunderbolt aside from Drampa, which was one of Luke's win conditions because it was Calm Mind Choppleberry, and then Scarf Lando I, which at the same time was also one of Luke's late game win cons because it's a revenge killer and a cleaner in the end game, which actually does happen to do late game, but we'll talk about that later. But so leading Specs Electros was just the correct play by Sacred, so I really like that he did that. And he didn't overpredict per se. Luke just made a solid play. At the same time, maybe it would have just been better for him to keep clicking Thunderbolt first turn, but Luke gets his rocks up turn 1 as he clicks Thunderbolt. Luke immediately realizes that it is indeed Specs Electros because he did a calc, so he felt his best play was to just click Moonlight, which it was because he switched out, so he got his Necrozma really healthy again, and I really like that Luke did that. Either way, though, it was a good play on Luke's part. It was a win-win situation because he still lived the hit unless he got a crit, and his Necrozma would have just been a little bit lower HP, but since he clicked Moonlight, he definitely won that exchange for sure. So I really like that. Also, a highlight of this entire match for me personally was the fact that both of their bulky waters was Z-Haze. I don't know if you caught that, but that was just a genuinely funny moment. And both of them were just like in awe that they both brought Z-Haze bulky waters.
Yeah, and once I saw the Haze revealed on the Finny earlier in the game, I was waiting for Game Boy Luke to kind of register that it was going to be Z-Haze just like his Tentacruel was. But it never happened. He never quite put 2 and 2 together that he hadn't seen an item on Finny, but he had seen Haze. So when it happened and he had that reveal, that was really entertaining to watch.
I mean, to be honest though, it could have been like just Papa Berry or one of the super berries.
For sure.
But Z-Haze made sense too, so like either way it could have been one of those, but it's just really funny. And then also, unfortunately, which is super unfortunate on Sacred's end, I really think it changed the game quite a bit, was his Amoonguss got frozen. So kind of like karma from week 1 because he froze Kelly's Mesprit. So now his Amoonguss got frozen. So it's just like, oh well, this is unfortunate.
Yeah, and
of course, I think those were.
It was a nice prediction by Luke as well, calling the Amoonguss to come in and going for the Ice Beam with his Primarina. But you're right that 100% it was the freeze was pretty lucky.
Yeah, especially the fact that terrain just happened to not be up during that exchange. So what can you do? There's not a whole lot you can do about it, but it's just like kind of ironic that it happened in back-to-back weeks for Sacred. So, but the Drampa just to kind of check Arcanine in any way, shape, or form was really solid on Luke's end. I don't fully agree with Luke's play of Z-Hazing with Tentacruel in the face of an Electros when he could have just knocked it out. Maybe I think he predicted a switch out, if I do remember correctly, but just like going for damage when Sacred really didn't have a switch in to a Tentacruel because everything kind of just took because Arcanine didn't want to take a water move, Finny didn't want to take Sludge Bomb, Mienshao didn't really want to get poisoned, Electros was out and didn't, like, Arrow couldn't switch in, Amoonguss was frozen, so like didn't really fully agree to that. Just knock out what's in front of you at that point and put yourself into a better position, because I really think that allowed Sacred to come in with Arcanine and just like, because he almost brought it back with Arcanine, just running Toxic, Protect, Morning Sun, and Flamethrower. But Luke still came through at the end with Scarf Landers, which was important for him not switching in turn 1 to an Electros, even though he could have. But a knockoff could have came out. There's so many things that could have came out turn 1 from Sacred's end, so it was smart to just leave the Lando Eye in the back.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Luke definitely made some aggressive plays and some flex plays as well as he went along, as he got some predictions right. But as you say, I think he always made sure that his win con was preserved with Lando keeping the scarf and stuff. So I think it's sometimes you make those more aggressive plays, but he never. We spoke about the Komodo in the previous game. As long as you preserve your win con, I think they're some of the things that you can't risk that easily.
Or is when you can bring your win con in to either break or potentially win, depending on how you design your team. But I definitely think he should have defogged with Finny when he had the chance, because Arcanine might have been able to pull the game back a little bit better or not take the rocks damage. But it was just a fun 3-0 win by Luke. Enjoyable match. Do you want to talk about your last game that you covered then?
Yeah, so my final game is my closest of the 3 games that I've got to talk about, as Cybertron took on Patty Tros with the, I believe it's Rotom, it's the Melbourne Melbourne Rotoms, that's right, against the Sin City Scissors. And this game came down to a 1-0 win for Cybertron. Really, really close game with both players kind of fluffing their lines in the end game. Quite entertaining to watch this end game. I thought that Cybertron had control of the early game pretty nicely with his Kartana catching the Golbat on switch-in with a knockoff to get rid of its Violite, which was always going to be huge for Kartana in the end game. And that's what I thought was most interesting, was that he seemed to set up this endgame for Kartana really, really well, whittling down all the good checks, making sure that it could kind of sweep through, and I thought that eventually Kartana was just going to come in, click Smart Strike, and sweep the whole game, but he never seemed to pull the trigger on it. Cybertron seemed maybe, I don't know, lacking confidence or just not willing to pull the trigger with the Kartana in the right positions to get those Beast Boosts rolling and just sweep. Which was disappointing because it made the endgame so much closer. But I do understand sometimes when you want to try and make sure of everything, you can be hesitant. And I think he should have been a little bit more aggressive with his cart. But in the endgame, it was really, really interesting because Patty last week was quite impressive against Gator and definitely still impressed me this week. But right at the end, he had a chance to win it as it came down to 2 Mons apiece. And he basically went into his Primeape to try and kill the Guzzlord when he could have gone into his Druddigon, and if he'd gone into his Druddigon, clicked Draco Meteor, then the Guzzlord would have guaranteed died. The Mamoswine could have come out and revenge killed with Ice Shard or Icicle Crash, but then the Primeape could have come in and won the game with close combat into the Mamo. So he had a way of guaranteeing the end game to win 100%. Maybe he might have missed a Draco Meteor, but I think he had other ways to kill the Mon that's name has now escaped me. Dark Dragon Ultra Beast. Guzzlord. Thank you. He had another way to kill the Guzzlord.
Guzzlord the GOAT. What are you talking about? How can you forget about Guzzlord?
I know. It's such a... I could, like, see it in my head, but I don't know. You don't often see it in Draft League. But, yeah, he had a chance to... I think he had other moves to go through that were 100% accurate, but instead he went out into Primeape first, realized what he had done, didn't want to click Close Combat and drop his defense on the Mamoswine, so instead went for Stone Edge and missed on the Guzzlord. I think even if he had gone for the Close Combat, he would have killed the Guzzlord. He possibly could have switched out, sacked the Druddigon, brought Primeape back in with its defense higher, and I'm not sure that the slight percent of Stealth Rock chip would have put him in Ice Shard range anyway, but yeah, he definitely misplayed going to the Primeape first rather than the Druddigon, and he called it himself, I believe, in his video, recognizing the mistake he made as he kind of threw away that endgame. But I do think that Cybertron...
Well, might I add, that Druddigon set, oof, that was some heat. It worked out really well, but
yeah,
that sheer force Life Orb so Druddigon... Good. That hit did so much damage to that Mega Slowbro. Oh my lord.
Yeah, I think people really underestimate Druddigon offensively. We often see it as like a Rocky Helmet, Rough Skins rock setter, but when you do run that Sheer Force Life Orb, we see with the Nidos and things like that how much damage those sets
do. That was a special set too. That wasn't physical. Yeah. That was special.
It was pretty
and it did that much damage.
It was pretty heat, and definitely good brings by both players. Like I say, I think Cybertron had the chance to win the game earlier with his Kartana, but he did manage to pull out the win in the end game. Definitely really, really interesting, and I'm excited to see how they both bounce back next week, because I think both players could have improved their end game. I think both of them could have done a lot better towards the end there, but their mid and early games were pretty on point. I was pretty impressed with both.
Yeah, it was a very fun game to watch. Like, all these Shield games have been, like, the Shield games were extremely close this week. I think all the games were pretty close overall, but the Shield division... for sure. But anyway, let's talk about the last game of the week. Not the game of the week. We already talked about that in the first. But this game was sure a barn burner. Nonetheless, it was pitting the San Diego Chim Chargers, coached by Lord MV, versus the Pittsburgh Piratas, coached by Old Man Tup. I just want to preface this by saying Tup, I feel, played a lot better during week 2 than week 1. He looked like he was in more command of the game. But MV still, like, was in the command from the get-go. Like, Tup just looked like he was playing better and brought more, like, just better sets overall. But one play I just want to address right from the get-go is the fact that MV doubled into his Ditto on the or switched into his Ditto on the Klefki, and just gaining all the knowledge he needed to know about the Klefki, and that really, I think, gave MV an edge from the beginning of the match to the end of the match, because he knew kind of how we wanted to address the middle of the game, the end of the game, etc., etc. Did you happen to catch this game too?
No, this is the one in Shield Division that I wasn't able to catch, unfortunately.
Oh, well, that's okay. I'll just talk about it more. But anyway, it was after he did that, he went into Drapion on the Klefki, because he knew Drapion couldn't really be, like, Klefki couldn't really do anything. And then I believe Tup goes into Rotom, and then He brings out his Z Victini predicting Will-O-Wisp, sets up a workup on Rotom, and then fires off the Psychium Z. I just want to talk about this play in specifically. I'm not trying to like go through every single play or anything, but the Psychium Z on Victini both was a good and bad set in my honest opinion, because Psychium Z, while it blew back a lot of his team, especially like Charizard X, which Victini usually actually can't even do that much damage to because Zardex is so bulky, is it didn't hit Tyranitar, and he could have potentially switched into a really bulky like a Saltvest Tyranitar to deal with Victini and Pursuit Trap it and do a lot of damage to it. And that just could have set up his Charizard X a little bit better. It turns out he didn't switch in Tyranitar, and the Rotom went down to a +1 Psychium. So after that, it was kind of back and forth. Tup positioned himself well to get some knockouts. Envy kind of knew how the game was going to end, sacking off certain mons to the team, Tup's team, like his Rotom, went down to a Leaf Storm from Scarfed Roserade, which he kind of felt it was because he brought a Scarfed Roserade hard in on Mega Sceptile, which was a good revenge killer for Mega Sceptile, but the way Envy ended the game was pretty superb. He made it so it was kind of a checkmate position, as his words, not mine. He literally said checkmate in his video, but he had brought in Roserade, or a Ditto copying Roserade. They're both Scarfed, so it's a speed tie, and he knew that he could live a Sludge Bomb and knock it out with Sludge Bomb, and then he could Sludge Bomb the Zard X, and if it went for Dragon Dance, that means he could get off the damage, do over half to the Zard X, and then basically could bring in his Sceptile as sack, and then bring in Ditto to revenge the Zard X. If that made sense. Did that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so then but either way, then his Ditto died, and then he brought in Sceptile to revenge with Dragon Ball. So either way, it was checkmate at that point, unless hacks somehow happened, or some crazy thing happened, or if Tup would have only been Mono Fire on the Charizard X, then he would have won because of Roost, but everything's crazy, so there's that.
Yeah, for sure.
It was like a short game, but it was a really enjoyable 1-0 victory for Envy. So I think it was a solid way to just end the discussion for week number 2 of the WBE for the Shield Division. Overall, we had some great games, some barn burners, as good old JR would say. Anyone gets that reference.
Yeah, I thought it was a fantastic week too. I was really impressed with, again, some of the coaches bouncing back from week 1 losses. Some of the coaches really improving this week, and I think I'm just excited to see where this goes. I think the WBE this season has lived up to all the hype. It's just been incredibly enjoyable.
And as an analyst, it's just like fun stuff to watch, and I fully anticipate every single week from here on out to be superb, and I'm really looking forward to a lot of games next week. But I guess we'll go off with that. Thank you guys all so much for watching week number 2 of the WBE for the Shield Division weekly recaps. My name is Jacob as always. Make sure you check out everybody in the description down below, to the analysts, to the GFX artists, to the coaches. Make sure you do that.
Yep. See you later, guys. Goodbye.